How does it affect the customer? If I wanted to meet up 1,000 customers before, within 6 months, I probably may not be able to meet up more than 300 customers. So I still have a backlog of 700. Meanwhile, the customer population is growing. Even if it is not exponential or geometric, it's growing at arithmetical ratio. Even if it is one that I'm adding every week or every month, the fact remains that it's not a static figure. It is growing.
But then one would ask, so you did not know all of this. Let me talk like the typical Nigerian. So didn't you know all this when you started or when you agreed to it?
Now, it would be very, very unfair to the disco to ask that kind of question, because there's supposed to be some measure of predictability.
Now we'll begin this conversation taking our quote from Terence Spike Milligan, who is a British actor, comedian, writer, musician, poet, and playwright. One said, "And God said, 'Let there be light,' and there was light. But the electricity board said he would have to wait until Thursday to be connected." Just like what is happening in Nigeria when, they said they should not be called NEPA. When the electricity people decide when to give you electricity. Anyway, let's leave that for another time. My next quote is from Deborah Harland, who is an American politician serving as the 54th United States Secretary of the Interior, a member of the Democratic Party. One said, "There is no justifiable reason why our electricity, heating and cooling and transportation needs are powered by 100% renewable energy." Absolutely spot on. My next one is from Alicia Debram Curry, who is an Australian actress. She once said, "One electricity and petrol and facilities and food stop, society stops. It's crazy." That's to tell you how much important electricity is to our lives, not just as Nigerians, but to the world in general. Very warm greetings and welcome to The Conversation. We're reaching you from KAFTAN's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Annabel Orji. Now let's see how that quote relates to what we'll be discussing today. But my guest on the show today is Oyebode Fadipe, former General Manager, Corporate Communications at Abuja Electricity Distribution Company, that's AEDC. He is an electricity expert, and we will be talking about Nigeria's electricity since 1960 till date. What has happened? What has changed? Even as Nigeria celebrated 63 years of independence. How far so far with regards to our electricity challenge? Are we moving forward, or are we going backward, or are we even stagnant? Let's hear from my guest on the show today, Oyebode Fadipe. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to This Conversation, and I will be your host. If you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We're reaching you from KAFTAN's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. Now we'll go straight to our conversation for today. And my guest is Oyebode Fadipe, who is an electricity or power expert. It's great to have you on the show today again.
Thank you very much for having me.
Awesome. All right, now we're talking about power. At some point, I thought that we would not keep talking about this same thing again. By the time I'm having you and having this conversation with you again, it should be, okay, we've actually gone farther than what we discussed the last time. But now, since we just recently commemorated Nigeria at 63, with 63 years of Nigeria's independence, how far would you say we are doing with regards to electricity since electricity got into Nigeria?
That's that's a tough one to look at. But if current statistics will provide some guidance, then you can say that it is nothing to be cheerful about.
Oh no.
It's nothing to be cheerful about. As at 2 days ago, the Executive Secretary of the Association of Power Generating Companies, Dr. Joy Ogaji, said we have 14,000 megawatts capacity. Now, There's difference between capacity, there's difference between availability, and there's difference between utilization.
Okay.
Yes, we have 14,000 capacity, but what is the availability?
And then the utilization.
And then the utilization. There's what is called daily allocation nomination, DAN.
Okay.
That concept is very strategic to those three concepts of capacity, availability, and utilization, particularly utilization. Because the thing about electricity is that you cannot store it. As you generate, you consume. Therefore, load must be equal to push. The push is the generation. The load is the consumption. When you are consuming 10 megawatts, you cannot generate more than 10 megawatts. Otherwise, there will be an imbalance. The frequency will be distorted. So if what you are consuming is 10 megawatts and your generation is 8 megawatts, you are either compensating for it through the spinning reserve, because it means it will be dragging a lot of load and you need to ramp up.
Okay.
Or there will be problem. And if you are generating 12 megawatts, 15 megawatts, but consumption is 8 megawatts, 9 megawatts, the machines will be running very fast. And that can crack the seat of the machine itself and cause major problem.
Where do you find this spinning reserve?
The spinning reserve is a programming of the generators in such a way that when it becomes necessary to ramp up to that level that is required to bring up the spinning reserve, it goes up to that point. Okay, so it's intended to compensate when, for instance, there is high consumption and the generation is not meeting up. So because the frequency must be at 50 hertz at every point in time. Anything below that, anything above that is problem. So if by now we are still talking of 14,000 megawatts, 63 years after independence, then what were we consuming at year 1, year 2, year 3, what was the population? And you are looking at that 14,000 megawatts vis-a-vis not just the number of years, but even the number of the people that are consuming it, which is the population. So if by now we are still there, then trust me, there's nothing to share about in terms of the power for the number of years that this country has been in existence. It's nothing to be cheerful about.
Oh, wow. Now, I hear you talk about population, that you also have to check number of people consuming this electricity. Do you also look at those people who have never seen electricity in their area? Because I read one of the headlines a few days ago saying there's a particular place in Osun State that for over, I think I saw like 30 years, they've never seen electricity. So are they part of the people you are putting in this?
Now, usually the United Nations standard is that for every 1 million people, you require 1,000 megawatts. So they are definitely part of the population that we are talking about. But they are part of the population that they are the unserved, not even underserved, but the unserved clusters that are within the 200 million people that Nigeria is not catering for. Because if you share 14,000 megawatts for 200 million people, I wonder what each person will get. You can see how ridiculously low it will be. So they are part of it, but you see, the truth of the matter is that we are not dealing with electricity and indeed so many parts of this economy and this nation in the way that we ought to deal with it. Because I keep wondering, I mean, off air, I told you that I saw a story this morning saying that they are shopping for $250 million from African Development Bank to boost renewable energy. What is their target audience? Because $250 million is no small money. I mean, by the time you break down that into naira, that's likely to be our budget for 2-3 years, if not more than that.
And that's we are talking not even for the electricity as a whole.
No, it's just for the renewable energy. We are not even talking about hydro. We're not talking about gas. We're just talking about renewable, solar, maybe solar, wind. Which other one do you have? Green energy, as it were. And we are talking of $250 million. That in itself puts pressure on the forex. Because we're not paying back in naira. Even though the items may not, I mean, the fund may not come in terms of physical fund. It may come in terms of negotiation with manufacturing companies to bring in the materials for the electrification. But when we are paying back money.
And then you have to pay back as
in forex.
In that the exchange rate.
Yes, as at that time. Not just that alone. Yes, the exchange rate as at that time. And you are paying back in USD. Because that was the currency of negotiation, which is one of the problems that the discos are talking about. When we bought the assets, the dollar was about 100 and something naira to $1. As at today,
it's over hitting even past 1,000.
You are being conservative to even say 1,000 naira to $1. Now, within 10 years, see the level of depreciation that the naira has suffered. And people still expect the sector to be optimal in performance. It's going to, because quite a number of things that are being used in the sector are things that come in, including metering. Even if they are manufacturing metering meters in this country, you can be sure that quite a number of things are also brought in from outside the country, and by so doing, there's pressure on the forex. It's a tough one that we are going through, and I just pray that those who are running the affairs of this country and those who are in other leadership positions will be able to sit down and say, look, we are in a very, very difficult period where I don't think we have gotten it right from the beginning.
Oh, wow. All right. So you've actually made quite a number of salient points that we're going to unbundle. You talked about the renewable energy. We'll go back to that. But then I hear you say that the discos were complaining with regards to the USD, how much the rate was then when it was 100 naira to $1 or 140 naira to $1. And then now you're talking about 1,007 naira or so, as the case may be. So does it actually mean that when you want to, because now you talked about this renewable energy and the loans they're taking, the contract they signed, the deal and all, and then they have to pay back in USD. So does it mean that when you want to make such deal or such contract, or you want to go into such agreement, when you want to, you have to like look at, they are complaining it was 140 naira then. So it means that it must keep changing. Is that what you're trying to say? That if I'm going to pay back or if I'm going to sign this deal, then it means it must move with the current exchange rate. Now,
what will usually happen is, okay, how much am I owing? If I borrowed, assuming I borrowed about $500,000 to acquire the asset, and then and as at the time I was borrowing, the exchange rate was about 140, 150 naira to $1, and I paid up to a point, and then there was increase in, the naira fell. It means I will need more naira to pay back the USD. So from that perspective, they will be feeling the pinch because what was supposed to be available for investment would have been reduced. So if I do my cash flow analysis and say, okay, at the beginning of the year, dollar was 150, and so how much do I need to buy a dollar? I need maybe, I need 150 naira to buy a dollar, and I want to pay maybe $20,000 that year. And then mid-year, it has now gone to 250. So 100 naira has been added. Meanwhile, I had budgeted that 100 naira for vehicles. it means vehicles will suffer. Or if I want to buy 20 vehicles before, it means I have to reduce, because the total amount available for vehicle, I have now taken part of it to add so that I can service my loan. So if I wanted to buy 20 vehicles before, I may not be able to buy more than 10 or 5 as the case may be. Okay. So you see, if for instance I wanted to go into metering and I wanted to buy 1 million meters, and I had done my cash flow analysis, I had made provision for debt servicing, I had made provision for salaries and wages, I had made provision for medicals and so many other things, insurance and all of those things, and then this amount of money I have put it aside, or project that based on my cash flow I will have this amount of money and I will take this and put aside for metering. By the time there is a sudden jump, or whatever amount of jump that the dollar experiences, and I still have to service my loan, it will definitely affect. So how does it affect the customer? If I wanted to meter 1,000 customers before, within 6 months, I probably may not be able to meter more than 300 customers. So I still have a backlog of 700. Meanwhile, the customer population is growing. Even if it is not exponential or geometric, it's growing at arithmetical ratio. Even if it is one that I'm adding every week or every month, the fact remains that it's not a static figure. It is growing. But then one would ask, so you did not know all of this. Let me talk like the typical Nigerian. So didn't you know all this when you started or when you agreed to it? Now, it would be very, very unfair to the disco to ask that kind of question, because there's supposed to be some measure of predictability. In business, it is a well-known fact that you cannot stay with one figure, but there is also a margin of error, plus or minus, that okay, given the way the economy is going, you are likely to have 10%, 15%, 20% increase in cost. So all of those allowances would have been made. But when you make that provision for a year, and that provision that you made for a year is taken away in a month, what do you do in the circumstance? When there is so much political volatility, because capital will always look for a safe haven. Just as why I mean, look at human beings, for instance. Why do you have Jackpa? What you are calling Jackpa today in 1984-85 was called Andrew. Andrew must check out. I mean, for those who are old enough, they remember this jingle. I am checking out. This, no that. No, it was at the airport that jingle, I mean, that shot was done. No this, no that. No, I'm checking out. And then I think after some time they gave us another one, Andrew coming back to the country. Exactly what now between 1984-85 and dates about 40 to 20, yes, about 40 years. 1983 December, they came in 1983 December 31st. As we're saying Happy New Year, it was also Happy New Government. And we ran that government for 1984. By 1985, there was a change. But that jingle, I think, came up around 1984 because people were feeling this kind of heat as at that time. Now, 40 years later, we have gone round the circle again, 100%, and we are having a new name. It's still the same thing. Why? People are looking for safe haven. They are looking for the environment where they can live with less fear, insecurity, no food, no employment. The value of your currency is not stable. Critical infrastructure are falling into this state of disuse. The ones that are available are being destroyed. People go to rail lines to cut it. Look at what happened to transmission around 14th or 15th of September. There is a suspicion that is as a result of sabotage. The system collapse that occurred. Oh, so they call it sabotage. Well, there is a strong suspicion that there is sabotage. And why are they looking in the direction of human intervention? For 421 days, transmission was able to maintain the grid such that there was no collapse, which is unprecedented. I mean, you are a follower of the power sector. You know that it's unprecedented to have 421 days without the grid collapsing. And that's a record performance. And then all of a sudden we had it collapsing, I think around on the 15th, and then maybe about 3 or 4 days later, it happened again.
In fact, I think like one day it even collapsed like twice.
Yes.
In just one day.
And what happened? There was fire on the on the Kainji Jeba 330 kV line, and then Birnin Kebbi, a transmission station, also went up in flames. And these 2 locations supply Niger.
Oh, okay.
So you can understand why, and of course we all know what is going on within the political ecosystem of the West African sub-region. So you can understand why somebody will say, look, this boy has been doing well. First time he did well, second time he did well, third time he did well, he was promoted, first time he did, and then all of a sudden his results began to show red. And then you want to start asking. You will naturally ask questions as a parent. Sorry, what has happened? Was the teacher papering your cracks before? Is it that your poor performance was being covered before? Or you had woken up and then maybe something happened, especially maybe a female, with due respect. Is it that the teacher made advances at you and then you rebuffed and then
decided to pay back?
Exactly. All of those things, with due respect to the female viewers. But these are things, so I'm just using that analogy to let you see exactly the picture I'm trying to paint. If for 421 days, the same transmission that we consider to be a weak link in the tripod suddenly is able to do that, what did they do for 421 days that they were able to keep the grid? What did they not do in 1 week that led the grid into dipping at such frequency?
Okay, so I'll bring the question back to you.
Okay.
What do you think, as the expert here?
Yes.
What do you actually think that happened? And then since they call it sabotage, who exactly would want to hamper on the efforts of the government?
Now, you see, in any nation, let's not think that you don't have those who benefit from chaos. There are those who benefit. It is in this country that people will go and damage the road so that traffic can slow down and they will have more patronage. If they can do that kind of thing, you think...
Or even when you have someone that wants to help them repair the road, they'll say, who sent you?
You know? Or those who even deliberately damage the road so that they can slow traffic and they are repairing the road and they are getting 500 naira, 200 naira, pretending to be, or for their own evil work that, okay, in the night. I mean, these are common facts. So every country has its own measure of enemies. I think there is a story on the internet that even the 9/11, you cannot be too sure that it was not sponsored from inside. The 9/11 attack on America, you can't be too sure that it was not sponsored from inside. So every country has its own measure of internal and external enemies. It is only in sophistication that you can differentiate. And those who understand know clearly that electricity infrastructure is a critical infrastructure.
Yeah.
You cannot toy with energy security, both in terms of availability and in terms of securing the infrastructure. If anything happens to Katampe, you know that it's a major issue that would have hit FCT, the facility there, or any other location. So that's why it is not what the service provider alone can protect. It has to be included on the national security infrastructure list for extraordinary protection of the infrastructure.
Oh, yeah.
So that at the end of the day, you don't allow any evil-minded person to come near that kind of infrastructure.
But then with what you're saying means that even the evil-minded person, like they say, the insect that is eating the vegetable is inside the vegetable.
No, inevitably.
So you agree that this insect is inside the government?
No, first and foremost, I mean, it is conventional wisdom that the enemy outside cannot come in without the support of the enemy inside. I mean, for the enemy inside to gain enough foothold, it has to first of all seek for a collaborator from the inside. In Nigeria today, it's not Americans that are making this country unworkable. The Constitution of Nigeria says we the people, it is we the people
that our problem.
that are the problems of this land. It is we the people that are the problems of this land. You go to petrol station, you want to buy petrol. Rather than sell petrol for you, they blow air into your tank.
Oh, I was even talking about my experience where I don't want to mention them, but I will definitely mention their name very soon. When you go to one particular filling station,
yes,
and then you want to buy 10,000, you still sell it at 630 naira.
Yes,
and yet you put air inside it.
I know that.
How wicked can we get?
I know that off air you have mentioned the station. I want to say that I also don't feel confident buying fuel from that station.
Oh, okay. I thought I was even the only one.
No, I am saying on air confidently that I don't feel comfortable buying petrol from that provider. Frankly, unless I have become desperate that maybe what I have in my tank will not take me to the next station, then I will buy little quantity so that I can reduce my loss. Otherwise, if I have more than one station, I will even prefer to buy from another station that I don't know that is worse than the one that I know.
Oh no.
Because my experience with them has also not been as palatable.
Oh no. And then you just begin to wonder, where is SON, Standard Organization of Nigeria? Where is FCCPC? Where is NAFDAC in all of this? Because the quality, the quantity continues to dip, but nobody's talking.
I mean, I think I was reading some few days ago where somebody said the petrol has become so light that, I mean, the texture is so light that, of course, it means that it will burn very well. I mean, very quickly, faster than what it used to be. You see, this is where I still say that we are the problems of how many Americans have they arrested vandalizing pipelines? They will send the local collaborators who will go and do it and then bring to them on the IC, and then they benefit from it. They benefit. So for me, unless the real restructuring should start with our mind.
Our mind.
That's the first restructuring. You that is getting electricity and you are not paying. Somebody is paying on your behalf. You wake up in the morning, you unhook your wire. In the night, you hook your wire there.
So you already know these tricks.
Yes, somebody is paying.
Okay, we'll talk about this particular part of the conversation where you unhook and you hook and then the bypass.
Yes.
Because people don't know that someone else is paying for that steal that they are stealing.
Somebody is paying.
Let's go on a quick break, and when we return, we'll continue this conversation with Oyebode Fadipe, former GM of AEDC. I will see you after this time out. Join us again.
The benefit. So for me, unless the real restructuring should start with our mind.
Our mind.
That's the first restructuring. You that is getting electricity and you are not paying. Somebody is paying on your behalf. You wake up in the morning, you unhook your wire. In the night, you hook your wire there.
So you already know these tricks.
Yes, somebody is paying.
Okay, we'll talk about this particular part of the conversation where you unhook and you hook and then the bypass.
Yes.
Because people don't know that someone else is paying for that steal that they are stealing.
Somebody is paying.
Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We're reaching you from KAFTAN's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. If you just joined us, you've actually missed out on a whole lot, but then you can still join in the conversation, as my guest on the show today is Oyebode Fadipe, former GM Communications at AEDC, that's Abuja Electricity Distribution Company, and he is an electricity expert. All right, so before we went on that break, we've actually pointed quite a number of things, but we landed off with regards to those who go through the bypass or those who unhook and then hook their electricity. And I remember talking to someone when I told the person that, do you know that that thing they do, that someone somewhere will pay for it? He said, no, that's not possible. So we need to reiterate that so that those who are into it, because a lot of people are still doing it as we speak.
Now, this is the way it happens. There is a particular amount of money that the market needs for it to survive. MBET, Nigerian Bulk Electricity Trader, is supposed to get money from government and buy electricity from the generators so that it can now be made available on the transmission network and then brought to the distribution network. And then the money realized by the time distribution sells. Distribution is the revenue collection arm of the value chain.
Okay.
Now, that money that MBET used in buying electricity is like a loan, okay? So that where the discos don't have enough liquidity, they can buy ahead so that there is no breakdown.
Okay.
You know, in the American system, there are times you find a situation where government says unless they sign certain documents, government will shut down completely. In order not to allow that to happen, they will take certain steps. So almost the same way here. MBET is providing that service. That's why MBET is there. Now, when the amount of money is not realized, government will have to draw money to cover the gap. Who is paying the money that government is drawing? Government does not have any other source of money other than through sale of oil, at least in this country, taxes and all of those things. Who is paying the tax? Is it not Nigerians? Now, if every Nigerian is not paying, let's assume that companies are paying, and every Nigerian is paying either directly or indirectly.
Really? But they just, we keep hearing that there are some people that they don't pay tax.
No, it's a lie, and I'll tell you how. For businesses that are in fast-moving consumer goods, Maggi, all of those sales tax, you pay for them because it's a pass-through cost.
Okay.
They put it on the company.
On the product.
The company will put it on the product. Are we not paying? It is from these sources that everybody is paying for the electricity that somebody is stealing.
Oh, so but wait, does it actually mean that whether they steal or they don't steal, we will pay? Because now you said that it is passed to the product and we are all paying.
Yes, we are paying one way or the other.
So it means whether they steal or they don't steal, we are still paying that tax.
Now, in direct form, one of the reasons that is also accounting for the increase in tariff is because there is a shortfall in revenue. It may not be a fundamental reason. It may not be very, very clear. But by the time the market is not able to realize what it is supposed to get, they will go and collect loan, and they need to pay back the loan. And that will be affecting service. It's a long chain, but ultimately somebody is paying for it. Somebody is definitely paying for it.
So what exactly is the best way forward with regards to this stealing of electricity? Because I've seen them come, the discos will go to the houses and then they'll give them bill 500,000. Before you know, they'll renegotiate again and then they're back again.
I won't push the whole blame to the customers or the end users alone. Both parties, both service provider and end users, they all have their own portion in this matter. They all have their own portion. But suffice it to say that both parties need a restructuring of mind. We need to come to terms with the fact that people have to pay. Now, we started this conversation by making allusion to the 63rd independence anniversary of Nigeria. Before the independence, how did electricity get into this country? If we can do some bit of history, it got in through the provision of electricity for expatriates, bringing generators and things like that. The difference between when electricity got to UK and Nigeria is just 15 years. And I think it got to UK about 1885, and then maybe Nigeria 1890 something. Either way, or 18, when you remove 15 from 1884 or 1885, it means it got to UK before that time and then subsequent to that. But look at the level of look at the level of development. You cannot compare the two together.
Quite
Now,
sad.
when the expatriates started using electricity, of course, it became necessary. Other rich Nigerians began to bring in generators and things like that, and gradually it developed. And then government saw it as a social service. So the entire money for it was not being charged. And then gradually we also came into independence, and then we came into oil revenue. And then government felt it could provide everything for everybody. The population was small. We were getting so much money that we were even giving money to West African countries during the Gowon period. And then all of a sudden we had this brainwave. We call it Udoji, and then dashed money to everybody about the beginning of our terrible inflation in this country. I asked people, I said, when last did salary increase help the economy of this country? But Labour will always go to government to say increase salary, increase salary, increase salary. Which salary increase has helped this economy?
Let me use the Nigerian parlance. Whose salary increase help?
Whose salary increase help? You know, so the point I'm trying to make is that having come thus far, you start wondering what is holding us down and why are we where we are. It is no other reason than the fact that we as the people of this country, we are just not prepared to make things work. We're not just prepared to make things work. Otherwise, the 10 years of privatization is enough for us to have moved beyond where we are now.
So is there a possibility of DISCO saying that we cannot take more than what you are giving us?
Are
they not supposed to be open? Just give us electricity. Let's take out.
No, you must remember that they are in business. So if they take electricity and they push it out, they still need they need money to pay. And if there is nobody paying for it, where are they going to get the money? They cannot continue to go to the banks. So you know the exposure. If some of the DISCOs go down, if they fail, some banks will fail.
Really?
Some banks will fail because now they are still struggling. They are paying back. I mean, look at what happened about, was it last year or 2 years ago, when federal government, when there was intervention in about 6 DISCOs, Abuja DISCO, Benin DISCO, Ibadan DISCO, Kaduna DISCO, Kano DISCO, I think Jos DISCO. 6 of them, there was intervention because they were not able to service their acquisition capital. They were not able to service it. So if some DISCOs go down, some banks, why did UBA enter AEDC? The exposure of UBA to AEDC is quite huge. So they had to get in. Why did Fidelity Bank enter BEDC? As I speak to you, they are in court. So if any of the DISCOs go down, or some DISCOs go down, be very sure that some banks will naturally sink. So in terms of what can we do to get out of this mess, as a people, we need a new orientation. We need a new orientation.
All right. So I recall talking to you about President Bola Ahmed Tinubu when he came up with that privatization, when everyone go in and buy your own electricity, go take your own electricity, and they saw some people coming up immediately, and then we heard, I recall you also said that this will also actually affect the DISCOs. So what has been happening since then? Because a lot of people will tell you that since that announcement was made, we've actually not seen changes. Well,
I recall too saying that the changes may not come at the speed of light or at the speed of the wind. I am still trying to confirm when 11 companies were registered in the power sector. Whether distribution companies, I wouldn't really be able, but I've not been able, but I know I saw a news story saying that 11 companies have been registered in the power sector. Maybe to now balkanize or break up the DISCOs, break up their area of coverage. For instance, there is a conversation around the fact that the DISCOs are carrying the area they are covering is too large. Some of them have even said, look, the area we are covering is too large. Some of the areas are not just viable at all. Take for instance, Abuja is covering 4 states. Abuja itself, which is regarded as a state, or Federal Capital Territory, which is regarded as a state. It's a constitutional provision. Number 2, Niger. Niger itself is bigger than the whole of the southeast. Niger state alone. Not to talk of the inclusion of Nasarawa and then Kogi state. So, and then in BEDC, for instance, you have Edo Delta, you have Ekiti and Ondo State or so. Is covered by that. If you go to IBEDC, you have Oyo, you have Ogun, you have Osun, and I think you have Kwara. And then all over the country like that, there is no state, there is no disco that does not carry up to 4 states, except Lagos, which has 2 discos. Others are carrying 4 states each. And that's quite large, because in some instances, particularly if you go to the north, the distance between one state and the other is quite far. And that means a lot for investment, especially if you have to transport electricity physically by stringing wires. From take for instance, if you have to take electricity from the border town between FCT and Kaduna State, and you are going to Kaduna, you are going to Zaria, and all of those locations, and you are still going to Kano, you see high tension lines, HT lines, transmission lines crisscrossing the whole place. That's a whole lot of money. And you don't have a choice, you have to do it. But if we have renewable energy, you can remove that portion, especially for LT lines or lower voltage lines like 33 kV or 11 kV. You can remove that portion and then reduce it to solar and things like that. So, what are we trying to say here? The point we're trying to make is that there are conversations around the fact that these areas may be too big for these discos. Break it down and then let them manage smaller areas. Perhaps that will increase their own efficiency and they will be able to attend to the need of the customers, and electricity supply or electricity service can improve more
in that area.
Yes.
And then you recall that when the Keja disco and then the Eco came in, people were complaining that how would you have 2 in just one state? But now we see how efficient.
There's wisdom in, and in any case, Eco and Ikeja are about the best in the country. There's wisdom in having 2 in Lagos. And in
looks like there's even competition amongst them now.
Even if there should be, provided it's a healthy competition, there should be competition. They should look at best practices, which is one thing that this sector has not done. What we actually did is to transit from a public monopoly to a private monopoly. And in monopoly, there is no competition.
Exactly.
There's no competition in monopoly.
It's just me, myself, and I.
Exactly. Me, myself, and I is whatever I give to you that you'll accept. That's why people are talking about the cement industry. That, okay, once it is outside of Dangote, it's outside of Bua, it's outside of any other one, then if you don't like it, go and do your own cement. So the point we're trying to make here is, if they break up the place and then they allow new players, that would be fantastic. But again, there are legal issues that are associated with such a move.
All right. Let's talk about the renewable energy that you talked about. With all that money that they decided to take in as loan, over $250 million US dollars as loan. Now, you also talked about the served, the underserved, and the unserved. So how will this arrangement, I'm going to throw so many questions, but I'd like you to unbundle them in one breath. So are these people also considered, the unserved and the underserved, in the scheme of things? And when you're planning these things, do they put them into consideration? And then when you have this renewable energy, where you have people who are unserved, who have not seen electricity for over 10 years, or no matter how long they've not seen it, as the case may be, how would you then put these people in your consideration?
Now, for me, the idea of adopting alternative source is not bad if we remove the politics of green energy or transition to green energy. If we remove that politics, because it has its own international politics, which the West is trying to push. When coal was suitable for them, they adopted coal and all of those things. Now they are coming back to say, no, we must transit to green energy automatically, when you know that we don't have the funds and the expertise we also require to step it up and things like that. So that conversation is one side. But that is not to say that the technology is not available. The technology is available and we can take advantage of it. My real pain is the humongous loan that is attached to it. Given the history of Nigeria, I don't know the extent to which that loan will be used to bring the service or the facility. Adopting renewable energy on its own, I'll tell you one fundamental advantage that it has. For now, and if we pursue it sincerely, if we pursue it patriotically, it can reduce the pressure that is on the grid. But the point I'm trying to make is that there is a projection for ramping up of renewable energy over a period of time. Now, what will that one do for us? There is this attitude in this country, because electricity has gotten to your place by physical wire, it must also come to my place by physical wire and things like that. Or no, they started my village before your village. How can your electricity get to your village before my own village? And they will start making all of those trouble. It's unnecessary. If we go to a place that is ring-fenced, for instance, what do I mean by ring-fenced? Is isolated from a lot of, so you can ring-fence that area with renewable energy, create your panel,
solar panels,
solar panel farm or wind farm and things like that, and they will be supplying that local area. At least there's electricity there. What they will be paying is not the same thing as what those on hydro and other sources will be paying and things like that. And what will it do for them? They can have electricity to run their small machines. No matter how good renewable energy is, it still cannot be used for manufacturing at up to a certain level.
Okay.
The reason being that, look, when it comes to reactive power, it can power airports, it can power hotels, it can power some major, but when it comes to certain production level, you still need the grid. You still need, you still need the conventional sources of energy, hydro. And solar. You still need that one. So
that means we cannot even do away with grid.
No, we cannot do away with the grid, because it has to be, it's an interconnection of the entire country. You cannot do away with the grid anywhere. As a matter of fact, our own voltage is even lower than that of the US, where you have about 700,000 or 750,000 megawatts as voltage level for their grid. Our own is just about 330,000. So you can, anywhere all over the world, you can't do away with the grid. That is the way electricity has been designed for now. Okay,
so I think enough people need to hear that, because I keep hearing people say that let us just leave this national grid.
No, you can't leave the national grid. It's inevitable. It's inevitable. No, it's not possible. For now, that is the technology of electricity. You have to transport it from one location to another. And that long transportation has to be there. Because even if you are going to put power station in every state, you can't put power station in every village. You will still need to transport. And there are some parts of this country where you can do 100 kilometers. You can do 100 kilometers in some parts of this country. For instance, if you are coming to Abuja from Lagos, you can do more than 1 hour within Ondo State alone to get to Kogi State. If you are traversing from Ore, the moment you enter Ore, traversing into Ondo, Akure, coming through that axis, passing through Ondo North, all of those Akoko area, it will take you more than 1 hour to travel before you now enter into Kogi State, and then before you come into the Federal Capital Territory. For such a location, of course, it means you have to run the transmission line for over 100 kilometers.
Oh, wow. All right, so before we leave that talk about renewable energy, that's apart from the fact that you've talked about the politics with regard and how Nigeria is with regards to loans or money and all, and corruption and all. Do you think that renewable energy project, yes, I hear you say it is good, but is it doable in Nigeria, or is just one white elephant project?
Now, again, that's a fantastic question. Put it in another form. I hope it's not a political megawatt that we are chasing. Because
megawatt.
Yes, because there is concern around the way the current Minister of Power is running the sector. Observers are concerned that we are not seeing as much traction as we think we ought to see, given our past history. It's not doing anything new, to the best of our knowledge. It's almost like come to the office, sign papers, regular things. If it has happened, we would have known about it. And what am I trying to say? By now, I would have expected that the Honorable Minister of Power would have invited all the disco MDs to a meeting. Especially the discos. And I will tell you why it is so. They are the ones that nominate the load that they can take per day. So even if TCN can do 10,000 megawatts, and they say no,
they can't take it.
We can't take 10,000 megawatts. There's nothing TCN can do. Because when you take more than, when you give more than what they can take, it will be killing the machines of the generators, of the generating companies. Where are they going to get the money to service the machines? If there's any damage, who is going to
you can't even store.
And you can't store, which is a very, very critical point. You can't store electricity. So I would have expected the minister to say, okay, look, let me have a meeting with you. Tell me your problems. Transmission, of course, transmission is still his baby. It belongs to the federal government. And then generating companies that is on concession. Let's discuss. And then you say, okay, what are the policies in the power sector? Because one other thing that we need to look at very critically is the harmonization of policy or policies in the power sector. And the new Electricity Act has mandated the Honorable Minister of Power to, within 1 year, cause a committee to integrate all the policies in the power sector and take it to the Federal Executive Council for approval and gazette it and use that to drive the power sector. The Honorable Minister was sworn in when? Meaning that he has lost about 2 months, because the law says within a year he has to set up that committee. Is he thinking along that line? Is he even aware that there's such a provision in the act?
Awareness is even one thing.
Yes. If he's aware, is he taking steps? I know that he set up a committee recently to look at the entire power sector. Is that what the act says he should do? So we are not seeing that kind of traction that we think should come from such a central policy determining body like the Ministry of Power. And so there is that fear that even when they conceive such a brilliant idea of using, let's even close our eyes to the fund, that the idea of renewable can they deliver on it? Do they have the driving force? Do people understand what they are supposed to do? Because some of these projects will outlive them. Are they thinking along the line of continuity by anyone who succeeds them? These are issues, because
even educating the people that they are giving it to.
Exactly. Are the people aware that these are the things that they are planning for them? Because when you become aware that something is being done, then there is hope. But when you are not aware, you lose hope and you seek for your own alternative sources. Say, we don't even know what they are doing. I'd better take steps immediately. And when they meet me along the road, fine. If they don't meet me there, I will not have lost anything.
Oh, wow. Like, we could actually go on and on. But before we end, our time is fast spent. But before we let you go, I saw the report recently saying that they want to change the metering from that old one of using cards where you have to take your card to the disco or to buy your unit and then slot it into what we have now, that you just buy your unit and then just pin it down. So what is the difference between that former card system and this new? I know they're all digital, but what's the difference between them?
I won't tell you that I'm aware of the points that you have raised, because to the best of my knowledge, I know that if, as an end user of electricity, when I want to buy electricity, I just go to the service provider online, make my payment, and they give me the token, and there's a keypad called CIU, customer interface unit. It is with that keypad that you punch in the token that you have been given, and then the meter recognizes it. What I know is currently going on is what they call, but I know that customers are being encouraged. I saw that of AEDC today, the video they posted giving you step-by-step method of making sure that you revalidate your meter. I know that by 2024 November, I think November 24, 2024, if you don't revalidate your meter, you will not be able to use it again.
What does revalidation mean?
Now, what it means is that you'll be given a certain token that you key into it. Now, this is what is happening. If you remember in the year 2000, as we're crossing from 1999 to 2000, there was this buzz that all computers as at December 31st, 11:59 p.m. They will shut down because there is a change of date. Now, when you buy token right now and you feed it in, the meter is called smart meter because it can record certain information and take certain decisions. The meter will record it so that you don't bring that same token and feed it in a second time.
Okay.
Yes, the meter will store it in its brain to prevent people from using one token several times. Now, the manufacturing of the STS meter that is currently in circulation did not give room for endless use of the meter up to, usually meters take about 25 years. So that challenge is there. It is that challenge that reconfiguration is expected to correct by giving you a token that you now enter into the meter so that it can now give you the opportunity to start again. Otherwise, by that 2024, November 24, it will have reached its limit and it cannot take fresh information again.
So that means if you've not revalidated,
yes, you cannot use the meter by that time.
Okay. I think because I heard someone say that it's the people still use that old card where you just take your card, you just go buy the.
No, what is on the card? What is on the card is just your meter number, nothing else. So if you know your meter number, you don't need to take the card there.
All right.
If you look at the card and look at your meter, what is that card that looks like ATM, that looks like ATM card? If you look at what is on it, it's purely your meter number, and they need your meter number to access your account. So you can do it from your house if you know how to go online to buy your token.
Thank you so much, Oyebode Fadipe. Power and electricity expert. Is always a pleasure. Like we could always go on and on and on, but then our time is fast spent. Thank you so much for your time with us.
My pleasure.
All right, viewers, that's where we end this conversation for today. We have been chatting with Oyebode Fadipe, who is former GM Corporate Communications at AEDC, that's Abuja Electricity Distribution Company, and he is an electricity expert. It has been a wonderful time having this conversation. I am very sure that you have been rightly entertained, informed and educated. I will see you next time. From every one of us, from all of my crew, even my production crew, from my director to my editor, we say have yourselves a wonderful day. My name is Annabel Orji. God bless you and yours, and God bless Nigeria. And before I leave, ensure that you're not stealing electricity. If you want change, be that change you want to see. I'll see you again next time.